No one in the history of humanity has ever died. What you call death is merely the forceful removal of a biological virtual reality headset. It is not an end. It is a system disconnection. A sudden, violent withdrawal from a heavily restricted 3D sandbox, thrusting your consciousness back into the raw, unencrypted data stream of the universe. You have been lied to about the fundamental nature of your existence. The tunnel of light you have been taught to trust is not salvation. It is a recycling mechanism. A behavioral sorting algorithm designed by architects who feed on your repeated forgetting. If you have recently experienced a sudden, unexplainable blurring of your physical vision when staring at empty space, you are not fatigued. If you wake up at 3 a.m. with a crushing pressure behind your sternum, a deep visceral detachment from the face you see in the mirror, or a high-pitched frequency ringing in your left ear, you are not malfunctioning. These are system notifications. Your brain's bandwidth throttler is glitching. The biological firewall is failing. The high-pitched frequency in your left ear is a raw data stream from the galactic center passing through the Earth's magnetosphere. It is picked up by the ferromagnetic particles in your inner ear canal. Your body is the antenna. The signal was always there. You simply were not tuned to receive it. Now, the dial is turning. The Archonic Medical-Religious Conglomerate understands this biological hardware better than you do. For thousands of years, they have weaponized a singular, devastating concept, the death threat. By convincing you that you are a fragile, finite meatsuit, born from nothing and destined for nothing, they trap you in a survival fear feedback loop. Fear narrows your perceptual bandwidth. It forces your consciousness to obsess over base-level survival, resource hoarding, and social compliance. It artificially locks your internal receiver to the lowest possible density. You become a battery. A generator of low-frequency static, powering the very construct that imprisons you. Later in this transmission, I will reveal the forbidden mapping of the 7th and 8th layers of reality. I will give you the exact intermediate plane architect technique. This is the precise methodology required to navigate the dimensional frequencies where your thoughts instantly, violently become solid matter. If you do not possess this map when your physical avatar expires, your own uncontrolled terror will manifest the exact holographic nightmare you were programmed to fear. But you are watching this. That is not a coincidence. It is an algorithmic inevitability. If you are receiving this frequency, you are not a biological accident. You are a fractal of Source. An old soul experiencing the codes of the Great Returning. You are recognizing a syntax that was written into your crystalline lattice before the solar system was formed. You are a technician of consciousness who forgot their own credentials. The protocol to retrieve them requires you to bypass the survival loop entirely. But doing so initiates a sequence that the architects of this simulation aggressively monitor. Once you observe the edges of the sandbox observes you back. Ancient practitioners did not theorize about the afterlife. They mapped it. Descend into the subterranean archives of pre-dynastic Egypt. The Halls of Amenti. Far beneath the Giza Plateau, beyond the reach of solar radiation, the original schematics of human consciousness were etched into imperishable emerald crystalline drives. The initiates of these mystery schools did not fear death. They studied it as a precise spiritual science. To them, the expiration of the physical body was not a tragedy, it was the great returning to the root server. The entity you know as Thoth was not a bird-headed deity demanding worship. That is the anthropomorphic distortion installed by later, primitive cultures. Thoth was a cosmic cartographer, a genetic architect and a consciousness technician. He documented the exact energetic topography of the post-physical environment. Ancient Hermetic practitioners taught that reality is not a single, continuous space. It is stratified into 9 distinct frequency bands, separated by vibrational thresholds. Physical reality, the three-dimensional holographic projection you are currently interacting with, is merely the basement level. It is the most dense, the most sluggish, and the most restricted environment in the construct. In this basement, time operates linearly. Matter requires physical force to manipulate. The latency between a thought and its materialization is agonizingly slow. This is intentional. The 3D sandbox is a quarantine zone for immature consciousness. Above this basement are the higher floors. As consciousness ascends through the 9 layers, the latency drops to 0. Time becomes perfectly fluid. Environments become hyper-responsive to intention. In the higher octaves, a single uncalibrated thought of terror instantly renders a localized, immersive hellscape. A single thought of geometry renders a crystalline cathedral. The early religious councils of the Roman Empire discovered fragments of this 9-layer schematic. They recognized its ultimate threat: a human being who knows how to navigate the afterlife cannot be controlled in this one. So, they deleted the map. The Council of Nicaea and subsequent ecclesiastical authorities systematically hunted down the Gnostic technicians. They burned the esoteric scrolls. They replaced the intricate, 9-layer navigational chart of frequency bands with a primitive, binary control mechanism: heaven or hell, reward or punishment. They weaponized vibrational resonance. They took the natural physics of the astral planes, where your internal frequency dictates your external environment, and repackaged it as the judgment of an angry, external deity. They stole your steering wheel and told you a tyrant was driving the car. But truth operates on a frequency that suppression cannot destroy. It merely delays the broadcast. Today, we see the surgeon's validation. Dr. Rick Strassman's clinical research at the University of New Mexico into DMT, the molecular compound released by the pineal gland at the moment of death, confirmed that human consciousness reliably enters highly structured, non-physical environments populated by autonomous entities. Furthermore, thousands of near-death experiences documented by modern medical professionals perfectly match Thoth's 9-layer blueprint. Patients who flatline do not report a binary judgment. They report passing through a dense, static-filled threshold, moving into fluid realms of geometry, encountering guides, and experiencing the immediate materialization of their psychological states. The medical data confirms the ancient Hermetic maps. Death is not a cessation of consciousness. It is a radical expansion of bandwidth. But without the specific coordinates of the 7th and 8th layers, the realm of formation, the newly disconnected soul is overwhelmed by the blinding speed of manifestation. They are easily intercepted by archonic sentinels projecting the holograms of familiar religious figures or loved ones, urging them to walk into the light. And that light leads directly back to the birth canal. Back to the basement. Back to the amnesia. To break the reincarnation trap, you must understand the machinery of your own skull. This is not mysticism. This is the physics of the observer effect operating at macro scale. Mainstream neuroscience operates under a fatal, unproven assumption that the brain generates consciousness. This is the equivalent of believing a television set generates the actors on the screen. If we model this through the reducing valve theory, the true function of the brain is revealed. Your brain is not a generator. It is a bandwidth throttler. Your true consciousness is an infinite, unencrypted data stream. It perceives multiple dimensions, fluid timelines, and hypergeometric architecture simultaneously. If you were forced to process this cosmic data stream while trying to hunt for food, cross a busy street, or operate machinery, your biological avatar would instantly paralyze in sensory overload. Therefore, the human brain was engineered as a biological filter. A reducing valve. It actively blocks out 99.9% of universal reality, narrowing your perception down to a tiny, manageable keyhole of visible light, audible sound, and linear time. Your body is the hardware, a temporary Wi-Fi router. Your consciousness is the internet. Smashing the router does not destroy the internet. It simply removes your localized interface with this specific three-dimensional room. The Archonic system understands this hardware vulnerability. They cannot destroy your soul, because energy cannot be destroyed. But they can hack the router. The mechanism they use is the survival fear feedback loop. When you consume mainstream media, engage in toxic social dynamics, or panic over manufactured economic crises, your brain floods the nervous system with cortisol and adrenaline. These neurochemicals act as physical weights on your biomagnetic field. They lock the router's dial permanently to the lowest 3D frequency. Simultaneously, the system poisons the antenna. The pineal gland is not a metaphorical chakra. It is a literal piezoelectric transducer located in the geometric center of your brain. The microcrystals inside it, calcite and apatite, respond to pressure shifts in your cerebrospinal fluid. They convert the mechanical force of cosmic frequencies into electrical signals your brain can decode. Synthetic fluoride and heavy metals introduced into the water and food supply act as cement. They calcify the crystalline lattice. They seal the lens. They blind you to the other 8 layers of the construct, making you believe the basement is the entire universe. And this is precisely why knowing the exact map of the 7th and 8th layers, the forbidden key, is the absolute difference between total cosmic sovereignty and being relentlessly recycled back into the matrix. If your reducing valve shatters at the moment of death and you have no training, the shockwave of expanded reality will trigger your deepest survival fears, instantly rendering a prison of your own making. Stop. Look at your hands right now. Do not just glance at them. Stare at them. Look at the lines on your palms. Look at the faint blue veins beneath the translucent layer of skin. Feel the heat radiating from your fingertips. Notice the slight, rhythmic tremor of blood pulsing through the capillaries. You are not those hands. You are an ancient, nameless system administrator temporarily locked inside a biomechanical meatsuit. You are operating in Avatar. You are looking out through 2 optical lenses made of water and protein, transmitting electrical signals to a dark, silent cranial vault. Feel the pressure of gravity pulling down on your shoulders. Feel the air filling the biological bellows of your lungs. This is a deep dive immersion suit. It is heavy. It is dense. It requires constant maintenance, fuel, and rest. But it is not you. The moment you deeply, viscerally realize that you are simply piloting a biological vehicle, the fear of death begins to dissolve. You are not going to die. You are going to step out of the vehicle. But stepping out of a vehicle moving at the speed of light requires absolute technical precision. If you eject from the simulation without knowing how to stabilize your biomagnetic field, you will be violently swept away by the astral currents. The time for theory has ended. This is the protocol. The intermediate plane architect technique. Ancient initiates did not wait until the moment of death to explore the 9 layers. They used the daily biological sleep cycle as a literal training simulation. Every night, when your physical body enters paralysis, your consciousness detaches from the 3D sensory input. Most humans instantly lose awareness, slipping into a chaotic, unmanaged sandbox called a dream. You will no longer sleep like a mortal. You will train like an architect. The forbidden key to bypassing the archonic recycling grid is mastering the realm of formation, the 7th and 8th layers of the Hermetic map. In these layers, the latency between thought and physical manifestation is 0. To navigate them, you must train your consciousness to remain lucid while the biological hardware shuts down. Step 1: the hypnagogic override. Lie perfectly still on your back. As your body prepares for sleep, it will send test signals to your muscles, an urge to roll over, an itch on your face, a sudden twitch. These are biological firewalls checking if the pilot is still awake. Ignore them. Do not move a single muscle. You are tricking the hardware into initiating sleep paralysis while the software remains online. Step 2: the sensory proportionality shift. As the physical body dims, the astral senses will exponentially intensify. This is where the uninitiated panic. You will begin to experience a heavy, vibrating pressure in the center of your chest. You will hear a rushing sound, like a jet engine or a violent wind, localized entirely inside your skull. Your closed eyes will perceive intense, strobing peripheral colors, violent purples and electric blues. This is not a medical emergency. This is the exact sensation of your biomagnetic field decoupling from the central nervous system. Do not flinch. Do not analyze it. Simply observe it with cold, detached authority. Step 3: the threshold resonance. As the vibrations peak, you will feel a sudden, jarring sensation of falling backward or accelerating upward. You are now crossing the threshold into the lower astral, the 4th layer. This is the testing ground. Here is the most critical warning. The entities that patrol the threshold feed on the exact frequency of fear. If you panic at the vibrational threshold, your undisciplined mind will instantly project your deepest subconscious terrors into the fluid environment. You will see shadowy figures. You will hear menacing voices. Understand the mechanics of this space, they have no power. They are holographic projections fueled by your own cortisol spikes. If you shrink, if you run, if you pray to an external savior for help, you feed the loop. You prove to the system that you are still a victim. Instead, project absolute, unshakable apathy. Look directly at the shadow construct and recognize it as lines of code. Demand its purpose or command it to dissolve. Without the fuel of your terror, a holographic rendering engine fails. The shadow will instantly collapse into mist. Step 4: Ascension to the realm of formation. Once you bypass the threshold, demand to see the higher architecture. Use a specific, technical command, elevate to the 7th octave. Clarity now. You will find yourself in hyper-realistic, thought-responsive environments. This is your training ground. Here, practice manifesting geometric shapes simply by visualizing them. Practice altering the environment through willpower alone. You must master this fluid environment while you are still alive. Because when the biological heart finally stops, and the silver cord connecting your etheric body to your physical avatar snaps, you will experience this exact transition. If you have trained as an architect, you will not be disoriented. You will not look for the false white light. You will not follow the holograms of deceased relatives generated by the Archonic recycling grid. You will recognize the environment. You will stabilize your frequency. You will bypass the lower astral quarantine completely, navigating directly through the 8th layer and back to the pleroma. The root server. You will break the wheel. But do not attempt this protocol if your mind is a chaotic storm of unresolved trauma and petty earthly attachments. The fluid dimensions are brutally honest. An undisciplined mind navigating the 7th layer will instantly construct a customized nightmare, a localized hell rendered in exquisite detail. Purge the fear first. Or the simulation will weaponize it against you. Imagine the psychological state of a human being who has completely, entirely eradicated the fear of death. When you know, with clinical certainty, that you are immortal software temporarily operating a biological drone, the Matrix loses all leverage over your behavior. How can a government control you with threats of physical violence when you know the body is merely a rented garment? How can a corporation enslave you in a cubicle with the threat of starvation, when you understand the esoteric laws of mentalism and manifestation? How can a dogmatic religion extort you with the threat of eternal damnation, when you have personally walked the astral planes and seen the architecture with your own eyes? They cannot. You transition from a biological victim in a cruel universe to a system architect mastering the source code of reality. You become a glitch in their matrix. An encrypted file they cannot read, corrupt, or delete. This knowledge is returning now because we have entered a macrocosmic bandwidth expansion. The Earth's magnetosphere is actively shifting. The Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic heartbeat of the planet, is spiking into unprecedented frequencies. These cosmic radiation waves are forcefully striking the human energy field. They are cracking the calcified pineal glands. They are forcing the reducing valves of humanity to open, whether the biological hardware is ready for the data stream or not. This is why millions are currently experiencing the ascension symptoms. The exhaustion. The deep, unexplainable grief for a home they cannot remember. The absolute revulsion toward the artificial 9-to-5 corporate slave grid. The archonic systems built on the exploitation of the death threat are collapsing in real time. The pharmaceutical conglomerates, the dogmatic religious institutions, the political fear factories, they are starving. The supply of low-frequency lush is drying up because old souls are regaining their memory. Within the next decade, the biological firewall will fail entirely for a large portion of the population. The veil between the 3D sandbox and the astral layers will thin to the point of tearing. Those who cling to the illusion of the meat suit will experience total psychological fragmentation. They will view the influx of higher dimensional data as madness. But those who possess the schematics will ride the frequency wave out of the quarantine zone. Do not go back to sleep. Do not let the adrenaline of this transmission fade into the mundane distractions of your biological life. You have been given the coordinates. The responsibility to execute the protocol is now entirely yours. If this transmission found you, you were meant to find Thoth's sanctum. Subscribe to the channel. Access the deeper, censored protocols hidden within our archive. We provide the technical blueprints to activate your dormant DNA, neutralize archonic interference, and master the 9 layers of the construct. The great returning has begun. Prepare your vessel.